Hello, Craig. How are you today?
Very well, thanks, Esther.
And where are you joining us from?
Currently in the the Cadrona Ski Field car park while my son does school skiing, which is quite a privilege. I think when I was a kid, I went to a piggery for a school trip. My son goes skiing now, so things have changed.
Yeah, it's a real privilege, isn't it? One of the
Yes.
fabulous things about running here. So you're at Cadrona. Does that mean you're standing for the Upper Clutha ward?
That is correct. Yes, so I live in Wanaka and been living there for coming up 25 years. And yeah, so the Upper Clutha ward, encompassing all the little towns and villages and not just Wanaka.
Yes. Good.
We look at Harware, the growth of Harware, Luggett. We can't forget, I lived in Luggett, did a year in the fire brigade there. So, and yeah, Harware's a growing little town as well. So it's, you've got to take in everything, Cadrona Valley as well. So everything's sort of, everyone's growing and expanding. So yeah, it's not just about Wanaka.
No. And what might you be leaving behind to pursue this? Or will you just have to reprioritize some of your time?
Probably my sanity, by the sounds of it, might be the first thing that I'm giving up. But no, I've got my own business, a wine business. It's mainly winter based, and so I've actually got a lot of time for council. I've got two young sons, but they go to school, so I've actually got plenty of time for council.
Excellent. You'll need it. That's great to hear.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do it if I was working full time for someone else. It's one of the problems of council. Like, I'm 49 and a lot of my mates work full time, and they say it's just not something they could do, and so everyone's pointed at me and saying, well, you seem to have time.
Okay, well, that brings us to, why did you run?
Why did I run? Well, I've thought about running the last time, and then time-wise, I was a little bit unsure whether I would be able to put the time into it, because I do think that's important, and that's one of the main parts of it is the time. It actually started probably I've done a degree in winemaking, but my first start of a degree was political science and economics. And so I've always had a little interest in politics and stuff. But I listen to podcasts and read things, and I'm interested in politics around the world and things like that. But it actually started when I was at the Dinosaur Park in Wanaka, probably 6 years ago. Some graffiti artists had put a C word up over everything, not COVID, the other C word before COVID. And I was pretty disgusted by that. And then I couldn't believe the process it took to get that graffiti taken down. And I just thought, why would you, if you were an elected official of our town, a representative, not come down and scrub that off? Long story short, it ended up having to go through to services, and then a truck had to come and lift a chair up and take it away. And I thought, I just couldn't get over. I was quite incredulous to that. So it was the first little spark. And then, I'm active. I talk to our local councillors, and I'm an active ratepayer. I do look at things, how things go. And I just got to a point where I said to myself, you're active and interested. Maybe it's time you put your hand up and had a crack at it.
Excellent. Well, good on you. So you mentioned that you did political science and economics, which I think pairs very well with a wine.
Well, I've got to add to that story. Sorry. So I did a year of that. And what happens with political science is you have tutorials. And normally your tutor is an artsy sort of person. And the tutorials on political science were really interesting. You're sitting there talking about Socrates or something, but then you're having a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon or something. End of the year, my tutor actually said to me, I think you're more interested in the wine than Socrates and philosophy. And I actually said, I think you're right. And so that's how I embarked on a wine career.
Right. Well,
so,
maybe
yeah.
this is the pathway back into the politics then.
Yes, exactly. It's a full circle.
Yeah. So great to hear that you've got that political interest. Have you got any particular worldview that you lean towards? So I'm not expecting you to say how you vote, but is there a particular political worldview or a worldview that you kind of lean towards? What interests you?
Well, I'd probably say, and it sounds like a bit of a joke, but I always go to the Whitney Houston song that I believe the children are our future. I think that's a great thing for just a basic
Can you
thing.
sing
That's
it?
I wouldn't sing it. I would do it after a few wines in a karaoke bar with an audience I don't know. But no, my politics probably is based on build up the base and you get a better outcome. I've always been like that, and I've actually I've voted for nearly every political party over the time. Starting out as a youngster, I remember my first election at 18 in Nelson, where I grew up, and I was super excited. And I went to candidate meetings. I didn't vote for the McGillicuddy Serious Party, but I was fascinated by transcendental meditation as a way to solve all problems in the world. So didn't quite go down that pathway, but no. So I went to all the things. I was just saying to you before we sort of went live, I listen to geopolitical podcasts, and I'm interested in what goes on around the world. A lot of it's quite scary. But yeah, I like to think I'm pretty well rounded. And as I've got older, the beauty of perspective is a real key ingredient. I've got friends who have absolutely opposite political views to me, but we're still friends. We can still sit down and have a proper chat and not get offended by it, and just I sound like Rory Stewart or something, disagree agreeably type
Agree to
thing,
disagree.
which is actually, yeah, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing to do. So I think that might answer your question.
Well, great, because I think where this podcast kind of comes from is what I didn't want to do is just ask what people's kind of promises are or what outcomes they're looking for, because while some of those outcomes may eventuate, it's more to me about the skills that you bring. So you just mentioned that you can agree to disagree, and I think that's an absolute skill to have around a table where you're going to see massive contest of ideas, you're going to see conflicts in terms of political views, you're going to see different forms of representation. So how do you think that you'll kind of navigate that stressful or potentially stressful environment? It may not seem stressful to you. How do you think you'll be able to kind of change your mind or compromise or navigate all of that?
I think the really important thing is facts and data, which sounds boring. If you've got an opinion on something and you can back it up with facts and data, and it's got some real perspective to it, it's logical, then I'm on board with that. I don't think the role of being on council is to know all the answers. It's quite cool. Like with my friends, we'll joke and call each other Steve the Ideas Man. There's nothing wrong with having an idea, and then the whole part of like a council or a group is expanding the idea. And if you have an idea originally and then you go to a group and they help you expand it, they give some more input to it, that's networking, and that's great. But if your idea actually has a lot of faults in it and people point that out, I think you have to sort of be big enough to go, okay, I had an idea. I don't have to be stubborn and it has to be right all the time. You got to have, perspective is something that I would have to admit probably came to me later in life.
Okay.
You don't have to be right all the time.
Sure. And I suppose the other thing is that my learnings are that you don't necessarily often, you can bring ideas, but a lot of the core mahi is just delivering infrastructure. A lot of the budget is on stuff that you don't get to sway massively through an idea that you've had. So some of the smaller projects you can. I guess from that aspect, then, if there's a direction that's mandated from central government that perhaps you find a challenge because it's not what your community wants, how do you see yourself navigating that? That's a really hard question. Sorry.
So one of my key things, one of my platforms that I am standing for and will, as the opportunity arises on the campaign trail, is I'm really big on, I'm a good communicator. That's one of my real strengths. I'm good. I mean, my wife hates going to the supermarket with me because I just disappear and talk to people. I can talk to anything and anyone. Anything I can
to get out of grocery shopping though, right?
No, not that at all. It's just that I'm quite extroverted, and I love the social aspect of life. Like, I like going to the pub, but not just to drink beers. I love social environment, and I really think that if there's something that I don't agree with, I will communicate that to the ratepayers of the Upper Clutha and say, look, this doesn't sit well with me. This is something I think, before we go into sort of the current council, engagement with ratepayers is just, it's not good enough, and I think it can be done a lot better, but I don't think that's a skill that everyone has. Some people don't even know how to turn on a computer in council, whereas some people can talk and run everything through a computer. So I think, communication sounds a cliche, but it's not actually hard to talk to people and just be honest. It's not hard. You shouldn't stand for council if you can't talk to people.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of if you meet a point where it is highly stressful and is really contentious, how do you think your family and your friends would describe the Craig under stress? What does that look like?
Oh God, I don't know if you'd want to know that. How would they describe me under stress? I would probably just listen, and like if I was in an environment where a lot of things were coming out and it was stressful, I probably would just quieten down a wee bit and just sort of take it all in and read the room a wee bit about where people are at, because sometimes you don't want to speak up and confirm that you're an idiot. Sometimes it's good just to sit back and understand it. I would go away from that meeting and be quite deep thinking about it, quite philosophical. I'd probably go for a good walk. I'd go and find some space somewhere and just have a good think about it, look at it from other people's view, and just try and not be totally reactionary like immediately, because I think I change my mind on things. You write an email and then you go, should I send this or not? And you go, right, maybe I'll just leave it for half an hour. And then when you come back to it, you soften it, you might change, or you might be more direct. So, I think for me is if it gets stressful, is putting a little bit of space and time to go away and have a really good think about it. What's it from that person's point of view? Do I really believe this strongly enough to hammer in again? That's probably what I'd say to that.
Cool. Okay, and last kind of question that delves into you, because we're not on the psychotherapist's couch at the moment, but
you don't want to go there with me, geez.
What role do you think ego plays in putting yourself forward, and does ego matter or not? Is it a problem, and do you have one?
My wife probably say I got an ego, but and my kids maybe, but no. The hardest thing about putting yourself forward is not the ego, it's the fear of putting yourself forward. So one of my intentions was, and I did say that, I have said that to people publicly, is that I put my name forward so that other people might go, if you can have a crack at it, so can I. I'm not the brightest and smartest of the Upper Clutha residents. I'm someone who like looking at being a conduit to tapping into those people. Talking before about being able to handle myself socially and networking and that. Like, I just see the role as being a conduit to the intelligence of people on all walks of life. My mate is a Sparky, highly intellectual about local politics, really passionate. He talks to me about things, and then you go and talk to entrepreneurs of this town, the people that they call at the top end of town, which they don't refer to it as that, their input to things as well. So we all probably have an ego to some degree, but I'm a very average sportsman, sometimes too competitive at it. So no ego, no, but we all like being stroked a little bit every now and then, said well done. Maybe I'm a little bit, my wife would probably say I'm a little bit needy for attention sometimes. So yeah. The hardest thing though for nominating myself, like it was just the fear of the reaction, and that was fine. That was all good. And then the next stage of standing for it is I don't have an objective myself. There's no project or one thing or something I'm trying to sneak through and get done. I'm actually like, I didn't want to use cliches, but I actually do like serving the community. I like getting involved in things and doing that. I actually do enjoy it.
Yeah, great. Well, that's good.
I'm probably more needy than have an ego.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the reason I ask it is because I believe everyone has an ego, and I do think that egos get in the way of politics. So if we look globally, that's just my view.
I don't have an ego that's going to make that's going to make me in one direction or another. No, I don't have a point to prove. I mean, I have a point to prove that I can serve the community and do that well and communicate, but there's no agenda. I don't have, I'm not trying to put a smelter on the lakefront or, you know, anything like that. There's no, you know, there's no agenda that I've got.
Okay, thanks. So you're going to be one of 12. So what
Yes.
do you think that looks like in terms of, you know, so we have currently, and it might change obviously in your term, but currently we have different committees, and we have councillors that sit on different committees, and then we have full council once a month where we make really big decisions, and they're often directed from committees, the chairs of committees. So you're one of 12. We've also got all this external stuff happening around us at central government level, which kind of directs us. How do you see your ability to influence, or where do you see yourself? Have you got any committees that you're particularly interested in, or how do you see yourself influencing other council members, I guess, and working with them?
I think you have to start off. I look at, well, go back a little bit. I look at the council now. It's quite fractious. There's division. There's not a lot of support with each other. People have come up to me and said, you know, I got literally pushed up against the, metaphorically pushed up against the wall at a bar one night by a very passionate local, going, who are you teaming up with? What's you know, who are you networking with before the election? And you need to run as a team. You need to drive in the car together and be a pack and all this stuff. And I said, I take your point totally. Each councillor should still have their own ideas and values they bring in, but you have to have a cohesive team. Like you can't do something on your own. So you have to have mutual respect for everyone else that's in the room. Even if you don't, I mean, it's hard. You may not, you know, inside you really have a lot of respect for them, but they've been voted by the ratepayers. You are obligated to work together. This division and fighting and all this sort of thing that we see from the outside. You know, you're in the tent, I'm outside the tent.
I see it inside the tent as well.
It's dysfunctional, and it's not professional. So I've got to sign up to being professional and respecting other people's views. And there are views in council and things that get done that I don't agree with. But if it's the majority decision and I trust that they had the right information and what they were deciding on, then you have to support it. You know, you don't have to be the leader winning everything, because if you do become that person, people will go, it's human nature. They turn on you eventually. You know, you see it in anything like sports teams. You know, someone gets a bit too cocky and cool, they eventually run them down. So, that's an important thing, is having that mutual respect, or should I say, earning that mutual respect, or gaining that mutual respect. Don't just give it at the start. When I sit down, if I get elected, the first time I sit down, I'm sort of going to say, you know, as a new councillor, if elected, I would say, you know, I'm not a junior. I would be a new councillor, but these are my expectations of everyone else. I don't have to come in there and say, like, if all the incumbents stayed and I was the newest one in there and the 12th one in there, I wouldn't consider myself a junior partner to some degree. I would say these are my expectations. I just want to share them of how I think we should behave. And I think that would be quite helpful starting off with.
Right. And of course, there's a whole range of things like code of conduct and standing orders, which also can be lent on and adapted with the new council to serve the members in a way that they want to be served. So being part of a team, what characteristics would you look for in any hypothetical mayor that's standing?
In my sort of pamphlet thing I'm writing is just starts with leadership. We're sort of just touching on how people communicate, mutual respect, all those things I just mentioned. You need to foster a team. I really hate cliches. I feel like previous election cycles have used all the cliches up, but I'd like to claim a few back a little bit. You know, if I see a sign up this year that says vote for change, God, I'd consider ripping it down. That cliche has been just trashed. But a mayor has to be a leader, and And that
what is
diving
that
into
for you? What
yeah,
is a
so
leader?
leadership. Well, some things that I touched on is that is making sure that every person around that table is heard. They've been elected. They deserve their 12th of time. They should put in their 100% effort for that time that they're being given. It's all the words, you know, the collaboration, respect, listening. The mayor is like, you know, the CE is the chairman of the football club, and the mayor is the captain of the football team, you know, and then we're all team members. There's a hierarchical structure that works, but if someone doesn't deliver leadership, it just starts fragmenting. Things break away. You know, if you don't believe in your mayor, then you're going to get fractures within council. You can see it already now. I've been to a few council meetings and sort of watched you guys in action. And you could literally go around with a blue pen and a red pen and go, I bet you 5 of that and you 6 of that, and it's sort of quite obvious.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously the mayor is a chair and therefore a facilitator of a group. And so the ability to facilitate a group is fundamental to the role. But then obviously there's all the other aspects to it, which is their relationship with central government, etc. And leadership matters there as well, right? But it's all of the stuff around the regional deal, which we haven't touched on, is I don't think it necessarily, it's not a make or break for our regional deal as to who we have as mayor, because that mahi's already been done, and it's been done by our whole council, not by our mayor. And so I think, you know, it's interesting to see different styles of leadership which are being put forward at the moment by some of our candidates. So that's kind of going to be an interesting discussion, I think, at candidate debates as well.
Well, I think from, you know, if you're talking about mayors, so currently you have I've been reported in the media that read some of that the councillors and the mayor don't even really have a proper communicative relationship anymore. So that's whether that's true or not. I mean, only you can.
I think, yeah, I've also read that statement. I think that's probably not true. But I think that there's many of us that have advocated for formalised whole council kind of reciprocal feedback, which is something that we don't formally have. But certainly there's obviously interaction and reciprocation with certain committee members and certain committees for that mahi to get done. So it's not just as it's not as simple as maybe that soundbite that came out in the media.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, we have pretty much run out of time. So I'm going to leave you with a big question. But the question is, sure, what could possibly go right? And as I've said to everybody, this is really framed around the fact that we are living in uncertain times. There's a lot of change. We're going through a transition currently, which could be compared to things like the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution. We're currently going through big climate change, etc. And because of that, in my view, our politics and our economics are having to change considerably as well. So given that all of the external stuff that impacts a local authority, what could possibly go right?
What could go right? You mean, what's the good picture? What's the good result?
Yeah.
Well, I think what could go right is that we get, going forward with a new council, and whether that's a whole new council or parts of it, is that things we just topped on is the ability of it to function in a more of a business-like sense. I think the key thing that Esther, that ratepayers are looking for at the moment is fiscal responsibility. So, you know, I'm literally now as a non-councillor getting bombarded by messages and photos of people's rates bills, enraged with how their rates have gone up. You know, we are in different economic times. We're in a financial crisis as far as the cost of living, and that is the biggest thing that is affecting people. And that shouldn't be the only thing. But when people are struggling financially, other things like your environmental issues, all those start to go out the window. They you know, those sorts of things start getting left behind because people zone back into their own zone, which sounds selfish, but it's just that sort of you know, keeping yourself together.
It's needs based, right?
It is, you know, putting food on the table and all that stuff. So, you know, I'm working class New Zealander. When my rates bills go up and I've got to pay all that stuff there, people are looking at where the value is and what they want to do. So getting back to your question, what could go right? And it sounds very boring and almost like a soundbite for just appeasing ratepayers, but it's got to be the management of their money. It's got to be, because everything else, the goodwill of people flow when they feel that their money's being respected. It sounds so economic and everyone's just about money, but when people are struggling to pay their bills, other things, the nice to haves and the philosophical things or the real passion things, they shrink and we don't do them as much. So to go right, people want to see a council that has more business acumen to it, in the way that the dilution of the responsibility to ratepayers' money is less. It's just got this feeling that it's too diluted. There's so many examples of things where money is just shouldn't be being done and spent on right now. We're all tightening our belts. I've had messages this morning from people going, why are they putting up this new chain link fence on the lakefront there, blah, blah, blah. They shouldn't be spending this. And why are we spending money on wayfinding signs for $350,000 for a network of cycle trails that's not finished? People are now saying, we don't want to see that right now. We want to see the essential core services done. So to wrap your question up is, what would be right is the council doing what it should do and being responsible with the money that it is lucky to get from people.
Okay, thank you. And a podcast for another time might be fiscal responsibility today versus intergenerational impact tomorrow. We'll leave that for another time because
I'm not saying don't borrow money. I'm saying what you use it for.
Yeah, no, and I'm not debating that, but it interests me because in politics, of course, one of the things we do is compromise tomorrow for what we invest in today. If we save money today, it might put the cost out to tomorrow. So yeah. I'm just being devil's advocate, but I'm not
being a Tory. I'm not being a Tory. I'm not David Cameron Tory. That's proved, so austerity's been proven to fail at certain times, and the Cameron government was a great example of it. I'm not saying don't do things. I'm saying do things better.
Yeah, I know. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking with you, and
thanks, Esther.
Best wishes for your campaign.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks for the time.